Hello everyone, and welcome to a review of Planet of Lana. This is a puzzle platformer of sorts, kind of in the same vein as Limbo or Inside. You play a girl called Lana who lives on a peaceful planet that is then invaded by aliens or another civilization, and your brother is taken from you, and you're basically on a quest to save him or find him. I really like these kinds of games. I really enjoyed Inside and enjoyed Limbo, and you can see from the graphics that the style's quite different from those two. It's more of a Studio Ghibli almost style, anime style. So getting into those graphics, the game runs at 4K on the PlayStation 5 and 60 frames a second, so all the movements are smooth. I haven't noticed any hiccups in the frame rate, and generally speaking, the game looks fantastic. There's quite a good range of different areas. It can get quite sort of dark at times. It's not all cheery and happy, but at the same time, it's nowhere near as dark as something like Inside, which was really quite dark and violent at times. So the game starts in this little village where you're playing with your brother, and it teaches you some tutorial style movements like crouching and jumping up onto different ledges and moving boxes. And this is kind of what you'll be doing the whole game, to solve puzzles and to avoid enemies, because Lana herself has no combat abilities, so you can't actually defend yourself in the face of enemies. There are native creatures to this planet that you'll come across, and one of them is a little cat-like creature called Mew, or Mewy. I'm not entirely sure, but he's like a little cat that you get to control, and he can help you solve puzzles in the form of flicking switches, dropping ropes for you from high ledges, and distracting enemies. The controls and movement in the game are fairly straightforward and fluid. You basically run from left to right or right to left. It's on a 2D plane, and you jump up ledges and crouch under things. There's not any particularly complex movements, and this works for the most part. It can be a little bit restrictive at times. I do feel like the game was kind of a one-trick pony in that respect, and there wasn't much to master in the way of movement or controls, which is both a good and a bad thing, in the sense of you pick it up very quickly, but at the same time you feel like after that initial 10 minutes of learning the controls, there's not much more in the way of mastering it. You are able to give your little cat companion some orders to stay and to move, which can be used to help solve puzzles, but after you've used these once or twice, you're pretty much going to be doing the same thing for the rest of the game. So it's just as well the game holds up in other areas that make it worth the full journey. The game really shines in its presentation. The graphics we've obviously spoken about, they look brilliant and they're atmospheric and colourful. The music as well is also brilliant. There's not a lot of music. The game is often quite silent, just with sounds of birds and animals and the wind going through the trees and that, which can be quite atmospheric. But when the music does kick in, it's quite stirring, and often accompanied by big set pieces or emotional moments, which is quite effective. There's quite a lot of suspense and moments and mystery as you try to save your brother from these aliens. There's a kind of a backstory that is explained in the form of shrines which you can find, and as you place these together, it kind of creates a mural which explains that maybe there's more to this planet than you first thought. But without getting into too many spoiler areas, basically there's enough mystery there to keep you intrigued and keep you playing until the end. The game's quite short. It can be completed in a few hours, depending on how stuck you get at certain puzzles. Although none of the puzzles were particularly difficult. There was one or two brain scratchers, but you're not really stuck at them for more than 5-10 minutes. And whilst the beginning of the game and the final act of the game are very exciting, I did find that the middle section was a little bit slow, and there was quite a lot of repeating puzzles with the same ideas that did get a little bit tiresome. There was a mechanic later on in the game that your little cat companion learns, which I thought was quite cool, where he can hypnotise certain creatures, no matter how big or small, and that can be quite playful at times and be used to help solve puzzles. But still, once you've done it once or twice, and then you're doing it several times throughout the game, it kind of loses its appeal after a few times. So like the scenes you see on the screen at the moment where the game looks brilliant, the music's playing and the camera pulls out and you've got your wee companion running along making cute wee noises, the game can be really fun and really quite emotional at times, which is why ultimately I enjoyed it. There's a little bit of jank. Some of the animations when he's climbing rocks or climbing ropes like you saw there are a wee bit stiff, but not enough to ruin the enjoyment of the game. And whilst I think it's a great addition to these kinds of puzzle platformers, I don't think it's an exceptional game. I think games like Limbo and Inside probably did it better and will live longer in people's memories. So I'm going to award Planet of Lana a 7 out of 10 because it's above average, it's a decent game, but it doesn't really break any boundaries. The graphics are really good, the music's good, and the gameplay is generally okay. Animation's a little bit stilted and it's not particularly difficult. The game doesn't really pick up in difficulty as you progress through it, which I found a little bit annoying. None of the puzzles were really difficult. Not that they need to be really difficult, but they didn't really challenge me in any way. And the fact that a lot of them are very similar to one another was a little bit disappointing. The finale's good, and ultimately it's worth picking up. Maybe not at £20, which is the RRP for the game, but definitely in a sale, and then you can play it over a weekend or an afternoon and have a great time.